Baby Beard Media.
Bravely going where no one has bothered to go before. It's the Imaginauts!
Oh, it's so nice for us to eat a meal together as a crew.
I know.
Isn't that nice?
Well, like the two of us. Of
the
course.
two of us.
Yeah,
well, no,
yeah.
the galley chef slash meat purveyors here.
Hello. What's the galley chef's name? I haven't met him yet.
I haven't met him yet.
Galley chef, what's your name?
Sam.
Sam the
Okay.
galley chef. We should.
Can I have some food?
Yeah, we should.
Exotic meat.
Let's get
officer,
Sean.
thank you.
He can eat. There's enough food here for everyone.
Should we beam him? Maybe. I'll just go get him.
Go get him.
Oh, it's unlocked.
The escalator.
come on.
Is the
Hey
escalator
guys,
working?
where's James? I haven't seen him.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I just walked here. I just came up. I've been around for a while, so.
Okay, I opened a pantry, apparently. There's a hen.
This meat we've been eating for 20 minutes.
So delicious, though.
You didn't talk until now.
I really, it's weird that we have a galley chef because we got the replicators like on Star Trek. So
I like that personal touch, though.
why do we? Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's very nice.
It's a family business.
Yeah.
I wasn't even sure this was meat.
Yeah,
Is it meat?
Yeah, well, it was meat. It was.
I thought it was some kind of exotic vegetable.
Well, it definitely screamed. It's a sentient vegetable, but
It's just such a great extra part of doing what we do as the Imaginauts, of like getting to go to all these different planets,
Travel.
and
yeah, I've been on this ship for how long now? And first time I've
About 2
even met
minutes.
you guys.
And it's good to have the audience here with us while we eat our lovely food as well.
Yes.
With us on the Imaginauts, where we go to far-flung places and discover far-flung things and tell you about them.
Like food.
Like food. This episode is not food-based, by the way.
Yeah, is there a way to say food that starts with M?
Meatballs.
That's tasty.
Or like meatballs?
Meatballs, yeah.
You're
With the question- with the question mark?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a misconception that this is meat. It's
Yes.
actually a sentient
Yes.
vegetable. Yeah, we're doing misconceptions this week.
Yeah.
Segue.
I just want to know, I planned that from the start.
So yeah, you'll be joining us on a little adventure through the idea of misconceptions, and I'm going to throw it to James.
Okay.
Good.
We all know who was president in 1859, right?
Abraham.
Wrong.
Wait,
It was
George Washington.
It was
Trump.
James
T. Kirk.
Cannon.
Buchanan. Yes, James Buchanan.
Awesome.
What a wild guess.
Yeah, I know. He was president of the United States, but was he really the leader of America?
Is this a common misconception?
This is a common misconception. Okay, this is an absolute bullshit misconception.
super uncommon misconception.
Super common misconception, but in San Francisco, probably not a misconception. It was.
Wait, yeah, San Francisco did exist.
San Francisco
Not a
did
misconception.
It's not a misconception that San Francisco is in
San
America.
Francisco, I'm sure James Buchanan was definitely still the president to them, but who really ran the country?
What year are we on again?
1859.
Okay.
Who ran the country to the San Francisco
who ran
people?
the United States of America?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was...
Not just the country.
It was Emperor Norton.
What?
Emperor Norton.
Why does this sound familiar?
Edward Norton?
Edward Norton?
Yeah, Emperor.
No, Emperor Norton actually sounds like something I've read before.
Emperor Norton, born Joshua Abraham Norton, basically...
Doesn't sound like the name of an emperor.
No, he was some guy. He just proclaimed himself Emperor of America.
Emperor Joshua. Emperor of America.
Of America. And
Like,
also,
like you say proclaimed in
Yes.
1800s, proclaiming is literally just
Yelling out your window.
Yelling out.
yes, he proclaimed this, and he was also protector of Mexico. So
Protector of Mexico.
Do you, like, geographically speaking, where is San Francisco in relation
North
to
of
Mexico?
Cali.
So how far away?
Away is away.
In 1859, I'm not sure what the exact mapping was.
Oh, so
Yeah,
you're saying
I'm guessing
where,
the US
like-
doesn't look like
Like
the US
San
looks
Francisco.
now.
Like if he's the emperor in San Francisco and he's protecting Mexico, is that even plausible?
Mexico
Yeah,
is
Mexico's-
further north than like Los Angeles. Los Angeles is
Is it?
close, but it's still pretty.
gonna have to get a map.
It's not a borderline in any way.
Yeah, it's not really
yeah.
close.
I mean, like
Frisco Bay.
the state of California borders with Mexico, I believe.
Okay.
Someone educate us.
Someone educated me. I don't know my
On
Mexican
US
my American
geography.
states. But yeah.
Meanwhile, tell us about the Emperor.
About the Emperor of
Emperor
America. Okay, so he was born in England. So he's not
Naturally.
He's not American. He lived most of his life in South Africa, where his parents moved. And then when his parents died, he came to America, I think as a fresh start, and lived in San Francisco. Many believed him to be rich, to be very wealthy, but realistically, he lost all his money investing in Peruvian rice.
Investing in Peruvian rice.
Yes.
This story is awesome already.
So he was just this character who would just say, like, okay, I'm the Emperor of America. He would go around with a cane, wearing a fancy clothes that were kind of like a bit tattered. But
See, I've just got the Monopoly guy in my head at the moment.
basically, he would just kind of like that. He would have this big top hat with a feather in it, and he'd walk around with a cane.
He must be the Emperor. He's got a feather in his
He was the
top hat.
He would say he was the Emperor of America, and there were these like myths about him that like he was the son of Napoleon, and people believed that him coming from Africa was a ruse to avoid persecution from Napoleonic haters, I guess. Also
God.
that he was going to marry Queen Victoria.
He spun some tales, this guy.
That sounds like a legend.
Also that he had met with Pedro II of Brazil, an emperor.
Okay, who is that?
I don't know who that is, but obviously another America.
Is that just exactly how he said it? It's like, I'm the Emperor. I know Pedro.
Yeah, but
Pedro second.
Like when he died, they went to his house and there were like these massive amounts of letters. I think like fake letters, like from the Queen and to the Queen, that he'd try and like obviously like keep this ruse up.
Were they in the same handwriting?
Yeah, probably actually.
Fancy that. She's got the exact same handwriting as me.
Yeah, he just said, yeah, okay, I'm the Emperor. He would go around. He would go to businesses that were like, and make sure like they're operating legitimately, or up to like public buildings or things that they're being built for the public, and make sure they're upright and for the citizens, and inspect policemen's off.
He was just some guy.
What is this guy doing to make money?
Trying to scam people, basically. I think really, but I think like if you
commit, right?
if you present yourself as this wealthy person, people might believe you. Though
it's like the guy we talked about with the spies
This is
thing,
what I was
Garbo,
thinking about, the
but like
Garbo.
really bad,
Yeah.
not as
Yeah.
good as that.
well, for the most part, he had no political power. A lot of people would just humour him.
Oh, that's nice.
But yeah, he'd go up to officers and make sure their uniforms are correctly dressed. And
Like,
correctly,
who is this guy?
yeah, and an officer actually arrested him once, and trying to commit him, thinking he had a mental disorder. But everyone,
Segue. I'm talking about mental disorders.
not yet. But yeah, everyone thought, look, he hasn't done anything. He hasn't hurt anyone.
He's the harmless kook.
He's just a harmless kook. But yeah, he's
like, you can't arrest me. I'm the Emperor.
basically
him.
he was just a massive eccentric that people really loved. I mean, like after he died, people when he was obviously had no political power, but he tried to get the San Francisco Bay Bridge built.
Oh.
And like he also wanted a tunnel underneath that water, which still happens today. Like, those two things exist, not named after him. Though there are plenty of like what is it, like petitions to rename the bridge after him. Emperor Horton.
Emperor Norton?
Emperor Norton's Bridge.
Yes, Emperor Norton.
I mean, it's
The
good
Emperor
that
Norton
he's
Bridge.
done a fine job that you've remembered his name.
Like, was it his idea, or was he just
Emperor
like, that's a
Gordon.
jolly good idea, let's do that?
I'm assuming he would steal it from someone. Like he would go through the streets and like people would be having a discussion. He would rock up and start philosophizing about whatever they were talking about.
just turn up. Oh,
Yeah,
it's the,
he had nothing to do. He didn't have a job. He lost all his money with Peruvian rice. What's he going to do?
How did he die?
Oh, he collapsed on the street. And when they went to his house, they realized he didn't have anything. He was broke.
Just letters from the Queen.
But that fake. He had like one gold shilling to his name, apparently. And yeah, he died in the street. Though the people paid for his funeral,
this is
and 30,000 people came to his funeral. They lined the streets, and the current population of San Francisco was 230,000. So a huge percentage of the population
chunk.
came to his
20%?
funeral,
No, that's not right.
probably thinking he
5%?
was.
30,000 out of 230,000.
Yeah.
It's about 15%.
15% of an entire city. Probably, I think most of them probably still assuming he was an actual emperor.
do they know, like, whether he was, like, delusional or he's just, like...
He was just a delusional eccentric.
Or was he just
Yeah.
a massive con man?
Yeah, was he just, like, trying it on? Because it feels like it's such a grand claim, like, maybe he was just a bit nutty and sort of half believed
maybe
it.
a little bit of both. Maybe, I don't know. Like, no one really knows kind of thing.
He sort of reminds me of the people who are kind of famous now for being weirdos who hang out in Times Square.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
the
that
naked
run for
guy.
president.
Yeah. An R president.
But yeah, but it's like, I guess back then where it's like someone acts like they are wealthy and rich and I guess superior, maybe someone would believe them, obviously. Like,
Sure, if you didn't really know anything about the world.
yeah, if you
'Cause
didn't really
you're
know like,
American.
anything
Yeah.
outside of San Francisco,
Sorry,
you'd be like,
Americans.
I guess maybe this guy is really
He's
an
the emperor. Well, he lived next door to me.
I mean,
fantastic.
He's got a fancy hat. He's got his like golden cutlass that his sword that he carries around with him.
I'm pretty sure you could still do that today.
See, that was going to be my next question. Is I'm trying to rack my brain and think, if this man existed today, would he be more successful or less successful? I'm not so certain about that.
No, but
Like,
if you act
How do
like
you get 30,000 people to go to your funeral?
I know, right? It's big.
What were you saying?
all you'd need is to convince some people, and then those people convince other people, and that's how ideas start.
It's like a virus.
Yeah.
Well, it is. And if you present yourself as being someone of importance, acting as importance, acting like those people would,
Yeah, and people back
But I
then
feel like in the modern day, it's so easy to check that
yeah.
kind
Well, back
of
then
thing.
you couldn't check.
And I think his appeal is that it's
That's true.
such a brazen thing.
Yeah.
And I think that would still be appealing.
Well, think about the UK elections that just happened.
Buckethead man.
Buckethead man. And
who's been applying to be prime minister for
like 20
like
years
20
or something.
years, and
Nice.
yeah, they don't know if it's. I think
People have
there's a
been
few
taking up the
different ones.
mantle, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
Buckethead.
But like, it kind of makes me feel that he. It's kind of weird that like. I don't know if he was a little bit crazy, a little bit eccentric, or just it was kind of a ruse to get money because he lost all
It
his
didn't
money.
work, though.
It was like he lost all this money, he disappeared for a long time, and then came back proclaiming he was emperor. So it's like, was he like, this'll work, or was he just like
He just lost his
he
mind.
lost his mind
Yeah.
in absolute
I
gutter?
feel like if he got like 30,000 people to come to his funeral and he was like kind of beloved and
he would wander,
tolerated.
the thing is, he'd
that-
wander the street being like, "Oh, I
Hello.
will help you. How are you doing, citizen of San Francisco?"
Yeah, I mean, I guess if he had that kind of like lovable crazy guy, and he was
Yeah.
that loved, like maybe he would do all right today.
I guess it would just be
he would get
because
his own TV show.
Yeah.
it sounds like he wasn't like a dick
Yeah,
emperor.
yeah,
It's
he was
like,
he was a good emperor.
it's like he's just like, oh, the lovable
Yeah,
oaf.
he was good to the people, you know.
He probably
His
could have
people.
very easily gone if 30,000 people showed up to his funeral. He probably could have gone. If everyone gives me 1 cent, that's what is it? $300 or $3,000? No, it's $300.
It'd be
yeah,
one-
$300.
$300 back then.
And
Pretty
$300
good.
back then would have been insane.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I don't think. Yeah, maybe
What
he
about
wasn't
1 shilling?
interested in that.
I
Maybe
feel
he
like
was just
yeah.
liked being a local celebrity.
I reckon he did-
for the
yeah.
people, by the people.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe he was just so
Without
good
the
and
people
generous.
knowing that they put him up there.
Yeah.
For the people.
Yeah. And then like, I feel like maybe
I
he'd-
didn't vote for
He'd
you.
wander around. Maybe he'd wander into someone's home and be like, "How you doing? Please, Emperor, stay for tea." Oh, I couldn't. Okay, you've got me.
yeah.
I'll just take this bed while I'm out and sleep for 3
I can see
weeks.
him making like things up like, I need to be out by 10 because that's when my limousine arrives. Wouldn't have limousines in 1859.
My carriage.
Then it doesn't
extended
arrive.
horse-drawn carriage.
Oh,
Yeah.
it must be late. It must be late. It didn't arrive. Oh, this happens all the time.
You know what? I'll just walk. I meet more of my citizens that way. Yeah. Everything's kind of like tucked into his
Yeah,
delusion.
And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure it would have
a lovely guy.
stories of grandeur and just, when I was in Peru farming rice
Investing in rice farms.
for the people, I decided that I couldn't take it and I just gave it all back to them.
Did you know that penguins are named after me? Emperor penguins.
Is your misconception that Buchanan wasn't the real leader? It was this guy.
Yes,
That's
and
nice.
also the fact that the people thought he was legitimate. It's not true. He was just some guy. And another little fact for you: he stopped a riot happening.
Oh yeah, tell us the story.
There was like I guess during that back time it was very anti-Chinese immigration.
Yeah, sure.
So there was basically
nothing's changed.
yeah, basically nothing changes. It's just like there's a new scapegoat every year. Basically, so it was like anti-Chinese, I guess. white workers are going to have a riot against Chinese immigrants in the street. He came in the middle of everyone and he recited the Lord's Prayer until everyone stopped and went home.
Just really loudly. Just
Yeah.
oh God, let's.
So everyone was going to
screw
fight,
this.
and he was just yelling out to everyone. Then everyone just stopped and was like, "All right, no more riot."
You just like a
Let's
riot
go.
about
Forget
how
it, he's ruined it.
Spoil the mood.
It's not even fun anymore.
just stares at you. Hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done.
Also, please give me $1.
Yes. He's so beloved. Everyone's like, "Look, I'm not going to fight around him. He might get hurt. Look, let's wait. Let's wait till tomorrow before we kill each other."
He's still there the next day. He's still just... fuck.
Riots off, people. Everyone go home.
He's appealing to good Christian values.
Yes,
What a nice guy.
That is the true tale of the Emperor of America.
True.
Joshua Abraham Norton.
The true false tale.
Norton. Norton, here's a who.
Yes.
Norton is a who?
He's a who? He's an emperor.
Who is a Norton? Mental illness. The guy might have mental illness, and I want to talk about mental illnesses. So
I'm really hoping where you're going with this is people think mental illness exists. It doesn't.
It doesn't. Everybody is faking.
We're all possessed by the devil.
I want to talk about
I wish we had a
M.
camera.
Night Shyamalan.
M. Night
Shyamalan.
M. Shyamalan, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Quick question. What is the M?
Murray.
Does anyone know?
No, I have no idea.
Margaret.
Margaret.
I'm going to look at
Margaret Knight Shyamalan.
What if it was
Midnight.
Shyamalan? No.
Oh, please. Let's hope
Moose.
his parents had this.
I love that your whole thing is about M. Night and you don't know, like, no one's bothered to... I've never thought of this before.
I'm trying to think what.
Manoj.
What?
Manoj. Okay.
It's Manoj. There is no... The night doesn't exist. It's Manoj Neliatu Shyamalan.
Okay. All right.
So
Manoj.
I'm
just-
glad we know
One of my
that.
lecturers
He just calls
on my
himself
hospitality
Yeah.
course was Manoj. He taught me.
Menage a trois?
I didn't never
Nicky
made that joke.
Manoj Shyamalan.
Misconception about his name. It's not
Mark.
Night. It's not
It's
Mark.
not Mid.
Yeah. His name's not Night
Midnight
either.
Shyamalan.
Midnight.
not
I guess
Margaret.
that's what he's going for. Have we seen Split? Have we all seen Split?
Yes.
Yes, we've seen Split.
Nah.
Haven't seen Split.
No.
So
I'm
Split
uncultured.
is
swine.
about a
Have you seen Unbreakable?
Nah.
Okay.
Not in a long
Split
time.
is about a fellow with
23.
multiple personality disorder, now called, which they get accurately, it's now called dissociative identity disorder.
That's right.
And the idea is that he has like 20 odd
23
personalities,
I think that's where
and
I've
one
heard of
them is a hideous monster.
called The Beast.
Right.
The Beast.
Which is awesome, but we'll get to that.
So many like art. It was like this. I was like, this is probably a bad portrayal of this. I'm guessing. So many articles written about how this is an awful portrayal of dissociative identity disorder, and it is, and it kind of demonizes dissociative identity disorder. And I kind of wanted to know a bit more about why is it harmful. You just get the idea that it's sensationalized and it's not great.
Yeah.
And the thing that people argue is that the movies that really get it right show you that these conditions are tormenting to have, right? They humanize the person doing who has the disorder. Like Psycho kind of
Psycho's
has
where I
that.
go to it,
He's
yeah.
very tortured. American Psycho, you're inside his perspective.
There's like the Psycho ripoff, Homicidal, done by William
don't know
Castle.
that.
It's like it's just a Psycho ripoff. She has there's this like you're introduced to two different characters. Turns out a woman is playing a man character, or a man's playing a woman character, but it's
Yeah.
like you don't reveal it until at the end, where it's like the brothers are actually the same person. Oh, the brother and sister are the same person. And like the best part of that movie is at the end, right before the climax, it gives you a minute to get out of the cinema. Like a clock comes on and say, you've got 60 seconds to get out before the fright happens. And because William Castle was very like chauvinistic, very like, this is the wacky thing we're going to do in our cinema this time. So it's
Right.
like you had to leave, or it's
Otherwise
too
you'd be
frightening.
too frightened.
Yeah.
No one leaves. I'm sure.
No one leaves, obviously.
It's a good Psycho ripoff, actually.
I mean, they even call him the Horde in it, which is just like such a harmful kind of thing to dub people with
Well, is it
DID.
is it actually possible for someone to have that many, or is it just
So the most famous case,
glorified for
the
cinema?
most famous case is a case called Sybil. and I watched a retro report by the New York Times. A cool little 12-minute video you can watch about Sybil, a lady called Shirley Mason who claimed to have 16 separate personalities living in her. But the thing that I found really interesting is the way someone described, like an expert described it, is that people have less than one personality, not more than one. Their personality fractures.
Split, yeah.
Yeah, it splits up. And the idea is like you're a different person when you go to the shops, when you go to a party, and people can't integrate the different aspects of themselves.
Sure.
So they're actually suffering from having less than one complete personality. They're different parts of themselves they can't reconcile, and so it's really painful for someone. It's not like, oh my god, you have all these different people inside you, have different powers. It's really not a great way of looking at it. It's someone is trying to put the parts of themselves back together, and it's like it must be really horrible to live with that you don't your reality, you can't hold on to it because it keeps flipping through different mental spaces.
The other thing is the subtitle for Split was also "Look at James McAvoy's range."
Yeah. And I think it's kind of campy what he does. He's having fun, but yeah. There's a thing they talk about in Sybil is like there was a really famous book, and then 10 years later it went to the DSM, the Diagnostic Manual for American doctors. And as soon as it went into the DSM, there was a massive spike in diagnosis, which is the same thing that sort of happened with ADHD. The diagnosis is kind of, as soon as it becomes more popularly known, the rate of people having it sort of spikes. And that's one of the reasons they changed the name, was like they needed to make it less exciting. Of like, multiple personalities. Like, let's tone it down.
Yeah. It's like, I'm a free thinker on the weekends.
Multiple personalities.
Who are you getting this time?
Work hard.
And they started to think that people might be like, they would go, the techniques were really weird at this time. So they would go in and they would give them like sodium pentanol, the truth serum. Yeah. And put them into hypnotic states and like refer to them by different names. And people claim that they were given false memories about traumatic childhood through doctors who were like super convinced they had multiple personalities. And there are people saying like, I went in for depression and I came out with multiple personalities because people would give me barbiturates.
It's like, hello, Johnny. I know what you're talking about. Hello, Johnny. Hello.
Yeah, right. And you're under...
Hello, Mr. Thompson.
Last time.
It's like, do you even know my name? Like,
Actually, I was going to say, I used to go to school with someone and her dad had schizophrenia.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But instead of getting multiple, like,
voices
and
and
stuff like that, he would actually only get feelings. So he would get a feeling of, say, happiness, and then his brain would make up a memory to go with that.
Right, yeah.
Because he couldn't associate it with nothing, so it would automatically make something that never happened.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, it's
And
a
then he would-
delusion
and-
to
yeah.
make up for the unexplained mental state.
Yeah, and then he would say it to them, and they were like, "Well, Dad, that actually never happened." And then it would go, and then he'd realise that it's
That's just scary.
Yeah.
Like losing,
Wow.
being able to like know what's real is just. I think that'd be the
Yeah.
worst thing to be like, all right, that didn't happen. Shit, what
It's
the
like
fuck's real?
the Final Cut. Have you seen the Final Cut? It's a Robin Williams vehicle that came out in I think 2005, which is essentially they get chips in their heads from a baby, which through your eyes you record your entire life.
Good Lord.
So he's the Final Cut. So what he does as his job is he will edit someone's life down to the key points to show at your funeral. So it's like,
Wow.
here's the greatest hits of his life. And he has a memory of himself as he killed someone as a child, and he just forgotten about his memory. But as it goes through the film, you realize that he's remembered his memory wrong,
Right.
and what was actually blood was paint, and it was all like,
Wow, okay.
you just over decades, like 4 decades, he's just misremembered this traumatic experience completely wrong. And it's like, how can you and that's just someone that has, no conceivable or perceived mental disorder. It's just how
It's just
memory is
improper
affected
in
over
memory,
time.
yeah. There's one with Robin Williams I haven't seen. It came up in kind of lists while I was doing the research for this. The Fisher King.
Yes, 1991.
It's supposed to be a really
It's a Terry Gilliam film.
Yeah, a really intelligent portrait of two people, both with kind of mental illness.
Yeah.
One's
Is that one
like
of Robert De Niro?
No, that's with Jeff. I always get them wrong. Jeff Bridges? Who's the
It's
other
Jeff
one?
Bridges. It is Jeff Bridges.
Bridges.
Yeah.
Is that analyze this?
And he's like a
No.
he's like a disgraced shock jockey, I think.
Yes.
And he loses his job and loses his family and
Yeah,
starts
loses
to
his
lose.
wife, and he's a homeless.
Yeah,
man
he
on the
becomes
streets.
homeless and he meets Parry, and Parry thinks he's Robin Williams, and Parry has some delusions as well.
Yes.
About his purpose in life. And it's two people struggling with mental illness, and it's a really intelligent portrayal, right? And the point I'm kind of getting at is like a lot of movies will go, psychos, schizophrenics, they're dangerous. But like it's not really a fair or intelligent way of looking at mental illness. And there are lots of really good films that do look at it really well. And I was hoping we could talk about some of them.
Hey.
We've seen them. Like, have you seen Melancholia?
No, so this is Kirsten Dunst, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have been told consistently to watch this film, and I have never watched this film.
So Melancholia it's a Lars von Trier film.
Yeah.
And it's about depression. And he calls it a psychological disaster film. So it's about Kirsten Dunst's character. She gets married to this really rich guy, and she kind of sabotages her own wedding. I can't remember exactly how. She kind of makes it into a kind of a bit of a disaster, and then she falls into this like really deep depression where she has like psychomotor retardation, where she can everything's in slow motion. She can barely get into the tub on her own, and she can't. She gets really anhedonic where she can't take pleasure from things. She eats meatloaf, and she said it tastes like ashes. And in the second half
Meatloaf
of the,
does taste like ashes.
yeah. In the second half of the film,
Not a misconception.
a rogue gas giant enters the solar system and is going to hit and destroy Earth, and everyone else completely loses their shit. But she finds peace. It's a really intelligent look about how people with depression can kind of look at disaster in a really large perspective, because their whole world is always falling apart around them anyway. And so it becomes a kind of metaphorical thing about how depression makes your life feel like an impending doom all the time.
I'm guessing there's no sequel.
No, it's part of a trilogy called the Depression Trilogy.
It just goes straight past.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, the relief. the relief movie. Oh,
gosh.
Melancholia, the revenge.
swings back.
we'll get
round
you,
the
gas
sun.
giant.
I almost feel like to look at mental health in a sympathetic way on film, it's intelligent to do it in a metaphorical way.
Yeah.
Rather than just a straight up portrayal. Although that can work too, I think. It's nice when like American Psycho, which is kind of sensationalized, you go through it from his perspective. So you get his fracturing reality, and that's how you understand it. Rather than just kind of pointing a camera at crazy people and going, look at how crazy and dangerous they are.
It's interesting because I remember watching Split in the cinema, and for the most part, it didn't grab me. Like, I just thought it was very, very kind of, paint by numbers, M. Night Shyamalan film. It's not fantastic. However, the final act of it, I was really digging, and it's because
more of a traditional horror film, right?
Yeah, because they actually do throw that twist of you. So with Split, you have all these different personalities, like the little child or the primp older woman, etc. And there's this the beast, which is the 24th personality or whatever the
number it is,
the one is, and you feel like it's this analogy,
But no.
But I kind of like I did enjoy the fact that I thought it was going to be this metaphor. No, he actually gets a superhuman aspect, which did actually catch me by surprise.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then, of course, there's the whole thing of it's we're heading to this is a universe. This is another universe.
Yeah, it's that whole part's dumb. But.
So, and admittedly, I didn't think too far into the whole how this is portraying mental illness and such. So it's probably just one of those things where potentially there was a better way to portray this. Maybe Midnight Shyamalan is just not the guy to
do it, because he uses mental health as a twist, which is not very nice. So a few other films that I thought I'd mention to see which ones might spark discussion.
Because he did that in Sixth Sense as well.
Well, it's kind of paranormal in Sixth Sense.
Yeah, but he's portraying it as the little boy is insane.
That's true.
He does also have the message that, like, those who have gone through trauma understand people better and therefore are more
whole. They're more evolved.
Yeah, they're more evolved on a
Emotional level?
An emotional level. Like they have a more understanding of what it's like to be in that position. So therefore, they have a better understanding of humanity.
Yeah, I mean,
on that level, I'm like,
that.
that's the kind of message I did like from the film. I found the film very. I was very. No, I don't want to say split. But
No, you say that sentence again, and you say it with conviction.
I was split about the film. That little kernel of something meaningful. What I liked.
A deeper understanding comes from
Yeah.
trauma. But,
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone who's had trauma in their life would agree with that. Memento.
Well, actually, I was going to
beautiful.
say that before because memory loss is that a big part of it?
So anterior grade amnesia. So there's two kinds of amnesia. You either lose your past, retrograde amnesia, or anterior grade amnesia. So you can't form new memories, and that's what that's about. And that it's like a chilling. That happens to people, and that's
The whole-
yes, it's a thriller with guns, but that's the reality for people.
And I mean, look, if you portray, if you're faithful to a mental illness or something like this, you can slap a genre on it. That's fine.
Yeah, sure.
Like romantic comedy, Adam Sandler.
51st Dates.
Yeah.
See, as far as Sandler films go, that kind of has a special place in my heart. Like, I don't hate that film.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of
It was one of
problematic
shit to it.
Yeah.
It
But
was
I don't
one of
know.
the
I just...
last ones.
It's one I don't mind so much.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Like handled badly, it could have been
Yeah.
awful.
And
Awful.
Yeah.
Like,
not for
absolutely
nothing,
insulting.
it's also helped by Sandler and Barrymore do have incredible chemistry.
They do have good chemistry in that film.
They've
yeah.
worked each other, I think, 3 times in total.
And
Wedding
Sandler
Singer.
hadn't stopped trying by that point. He's got energy on screen, and
Yeah.
he gives it a red hot go. A Little Miss Sunshine.
I watched that for the first time this year.
Yeah.
And it's made me happy in all areas of my body.
Is that grandmother's? No. What's
The
that?
grandfather played by Alan Arkin.
Is losing his memory?
He's
Or is
what's
he-
that?
Is he? I can't remember.
So it's got Greg Kinnear,
That's the
Paul
one where
Dano.
They drive around in a car, like a yellow van.
Yeah.
Yeah, they drive in a little van. They're trying to get across the country to get the little kid to a beauty pageant.
Ah,
Have you not seen it?
And
I have
it
not
opens,
seen it.
it
Oh,
it's
opens
so charming.
with the brother, like her uncle has...
So Steve Carell's
Steve Carell's
character.
character's just tried to kill himself.
Yeah.
And it's not made a huge thing of throughout the film, but that's how it begins. Is he's lost
the will.
the
Each-
will, right?
Each character has a tie to the film, and it's really just handled beautifully.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful portrait of kind of mental strife, I guess,
Yeah.
of all different stripes.
Paul Dano's character finds out halfway through the film, thanks to Steve Carell's character, that he's colorblind.
Yeah.
And he's gone on a vow of silence because he's going to become a
It's not he's on a vow. He's sort of silent because he is, and it's not really explained, I think, but he does have a dream.
It was explained because it was
That's a
because he wanted to become a pilot.
Yeah, he does have a dream to be a fighter pilot.
And
yeah.
when Steve Carell finds out that he's colorblind, he says, "You can't, like, you're not going to be able to become a fighter pilot. You need." And he just
They stop the car.
shatters him, and it's just heartbreaking.
it's one of the best scenes in cinema, I think.
Yeah, it's
Such a
watch it.
wonderful
Please
scene.
watch it.
okay.
Yeah, really go watch that film. Another Lars and the Real Girl I haven't seen. I don't know if someone's seen Lars
Is that
and the Real Girl.
with Ryan Gosling?
Ryan Gosling.
I've
yeah.
got it upstairs, but I haven't watched it.
Yeah, I heard it's very, very good. So Ryan, it's been a bit hard for us to talk about. None of us seen it, but it's about Ryan Gosling's character he's massive anxiety. He's traumatized by abandonment. His whole family's left him. Brothers skipped towns. Both his parents are dead, and he copes by forming an emotional attachment to a sex doll who who is his partner essentially, and the whole town bands together to be like, let's go along with this and kind of keep him going. And through them accepting that, he manages to find bonds with
A real
real people
girl.
in the town.
Yeah.
And eventually he doesn't need the girl anymore. And but that's supposed to be a very, very sensitive portrayal of kind of
because they all treat
introversion and
They all
anxiety.
treat the doll like as if she were a person,
Yeah.
and
They all get behind it, and her parents are very, very sweet. Black Swan. I'm just going to whack through some
Black Swan.
movies.
Yep, saw it in the cinemas.
So yeah, that's her. Someone cracking under pressure, right? And you don't know what's real. She doesn't know what's real.
So-
So really takes you inside
She
her
turns into a
mind.
black swan thing.
Myself and Tom, with another friend, we saw that in the cinema. We left the cinema laughing because it broke our minds.
Yeah, you're just like, what's real?
We were maniacally laughing because it's like, what? Like, not in a bad way. It's like, what was that? It was
that kind of like, what did we just watch?
Yeah, she's like, and I was also just enamored by this credit fading to white. What is this? I'm not used to this.
Misconception that credits always have to be black.
Yes.
I was gonna say.
It's because when it's white, it's because you've spent so long in a dark space. It's very like, whoa, oh my god,
yeah.
my eyes are hurting.
We can't talk about every movie that's been that covers
This is a
mental
10-hour
illness,
podcast.
without eating all your time up. But I was looking at best movies for mental portraying mental illness and worst movies, and I found a few which are on both lists, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Where do you think Tropic Thunder falls?
Worst. Silver Linings Playbook, both on good and bad.
See, I've read the book.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the book's quite good.
How
Good.
does that go against the movie?
I haven't seen the movie.
Right.
But I'm assuming it's quite good because Jennifer Lawrence won the Oscar for it.
See, everyone's so
did she?
divided
Yeah.
with Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, that's the one she won the Oscar
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
So she
Because she was nominated for Winter's Bone, but she didn't. No, she did win for Winter's Bone.
She got supporting for American Hustle.
2013. Yeah.
But that's quite an interesting book.
Yeah.
Because he goes crazy when his fiancée or his girlfriend leaves him.
Yeah.
And the whole time he's in the mental hospital is all he thinks about is that he must get her back.
Yeah. In the
And
movie, he's really chasing after her as well.
Yeah. And he does this whole wears a garbage bag.
Yeah,
like,
that's
when he
in it,
runs, so he can sweat and he can,
Yep.
so he
Yeah,
can
that's
look
in it,
better
yeah.
for her. And
I
he
remember
goes through
liking
these
it
crazy.
when I saw it.
Same.
Yeah.
And his dad,
because Robert
doesn't
De Niro's in
understand
it.
how
The main problem with it is that the fact that they get together at the end sort of solves all their problems, which is a bit...
I can't remember. Does it imply that it's a happily ever after, or that
A
it's
little bit,
a work
yeah.
in progress? Like, you know that thing
sort
where it's like,
of... They never really go and get proper help. They're just like, we're together now. Hooray!
Yeah, but
I think
I
by
would see
finding
it as
each other.
Yeah, I would see even if they're together, I think as an audience, you know that's
It's a
not
long
gonna-
road ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not
It's two
gonna,
bipolar people.
Yeah, that's not going to go well. You can enjoy this for 5 minutes for happiness.
Yeah,
the
for
whole
sure.
the whole reason, the whole thing behind them getting together is that he can finally move on
from
Yeah.
the
from
ex.
the ex that doesn't.
It doesn't.
want him.
It's still work to do,
Yeah.
but he's not
Yeah.
looking in the past anymore.
So
Yeah,
it's
he's
less
trying
about
to-
what's happening forward and what is left behind sort of
He's-
deals.
he's
Now,
trying to
whatever's
work
ahead
out,
is...
it's trying to work out
Yeah.
everything in the middle. But
That's nice.
Yeah, the Martin Scorsese film Shutter Island was on good and bad as well. Some people say it's very good, it was a very bad portrayal because it
like that
has the
movie.
cliched. It was all in his mind.
Yeah. All I remember from that film is just it was visually fantastic.
It's fantastic
It's
visually,
visually
yeah.
stunning.
But
But that's what I took away from it, which is probably wrong.
yeah.
now,
What do you mean by it's all in his mind? Because technically the whole thing's a setup.
to get him in there, isn't it?
No, the whole thing's
Oh.
a setup to get him to admit that
He's insane.
he's not. any
Yeah,
of
so
this.
the setup is that he's he is there to investigate like a missing patient because he's a US Marshal.
Oh, and they
but
go
it turns out that he's been a patient there the whole
Yeah,
time.
and
Yes.
he's supposed to realize himself that it's
But he-
all a
but he
lie.
They're doing a
doesn't-
role playing.
Yeah,
But in
yeah.
the end, don't they imply that, so he remembers everything, but he pretends not to remember it, so then they're going to give him a lobotomy.
He
they-
remembers killing his family, so
But
he's
he pretends that he pretends that he didn't, so
Yeah,
that he
yeah.
can get lobotomized. Yeah. Spoiler.
Yeah, it's very silly.
Now I've got two. One is Secret Window.
Secret Window with Johnny Depp.
I love
Johnny Depp.
Secret Window.
See, now that was was
Secret
that on the good bad list?
No, it wasn't on any list.
I didn't enjoy Secret Window.
Yeah,
Really, I think
No.
that's I think that's the film I enjoy most of Johnny Depp's.
For me, I've got Gilbert Grape.
That was on a couple of lists. Said it's meant to be
which
quite.
for me is it's Leonardo DiCaprio at age 16. Let's take away Johnny Depp because Johnny Depp is fantastic in that film. Leonardo DiCaprio, age 16, is portraying mental illness to the point where this is a 16-year-old kid, spent months talking and conversing with people with similar issues so that he has a faithful representation
that's
of
amazing.
that character. It's beautiful. It's beautifully done.
I just want to wrap it back around to M. Night Shyamalan
Midnight.
because apparently one of the most criticized movies for how they handle mental illness recently was his film The Visit.
The Visit, that was recent,
Visit,
wasn't it?
Yeah,
very
that was a
recent.
couple
So
of years
the
ago,
plot
3
of The
years ago.
Visit is these kids go to visit their estranged grandparents who their mum had a falling out with them, so they haven't seen them for years and years and years. They go to visit them. They start acting weird. It turns out, actually, they're two escaped mental patients from the hospital where their grandparents work, and they've already killed their grandparents, and they're assuming their identities.
I've read the synopsis for this. It's batshit insane.
It's stupid, right? So they're meant to be...
So much work.
Yes. And they're meant to be, like, schizophrenic. And so they act all weird and say strange things, but they also manage to keep up a ruse that they're these kids' grandparents for a week. If they're that far gone, there's no possible way
The
they
cracks
could
would
have
be
this
showing
murderous
straight up.
intent that they would, and they just kind of run through all the symptoms really fast. And the main problem, I think, to sum it up, really, is that it's jump scares and horror for a kind of teenager audience of like
Jump scare for jump scare's sake.
and look at the schizophrenics. They're dangerous and murderous, and it's just another layer of stigma for people who have it pretty bad already, right?
Yeah.
Thanks, M. Night.
I was going to say the last one on my film.
Yeah, you finish off.
Was Sucker Punch.
Oh God! Oh God! We're not going to talk about Sucker
Can we
Punch.
talk about how amazing that film is?
No.
Just its representation of women, its representation of
mental
illness, of original writing, of direct.
speed ramping, special effects,
Yes.
washed out color tones, masterpiece. Sean, go get us off Sucker Punch now.
All right, cool. Just going to say he cast two Australians. Woo.
Get us off Sucker.
Broke the ship.
Please get us off Sucker Punch.
All right, so I'm going to go a little. I'm going to steer this ship away.
Isn't that the captain's
Again,
job?
we're all eating. It's the autopilot.
Exactly.
It's the
we're
autopilot.
fine. We've been doing this for a few months. We haven't crashed it yet.
Sean slipped off.
We have
and
no
he's
idea where
just-
we are. Engineer is missing.
We
It's
didn't realize
fine.
we had a cure of meat.
Cure
Exotic
of
meats officer.
exotic meats.
So I'm heading down the route for our Canadian friends.
Isn't it American?
We don't have any.
There's a very obscure Who's
For
Line joke
Canadians,
as
it's
well,
route
by the
A.
way. So, pro wrestling.
Oh, your
Professional
little
wrestling.
favourite topic.
So I haven't needed to.
It's real, all right,
write down
everyone.
my-
It's real.
It's real. Well, that's
That's
where
it.
I'm starting.
Kind of topical, right? Because Trump recently tweeted out a video of his appearance
Now
on
that's misconception.
WWE.
But superimposed CNN on the face.
So it's him body slamming CNN. Everyone's
How
like,
good
that was
is
really
man
irresponsible.
At Misconception.
Like,
Yeah, he's the best.
so it was like, so are you promoting violence
Against journalists, essentially.
Or why do you have Twitter?
Did you see like Viceland's like response, like because like the feed basically on SBS, like I think it's Mark Humphries or someone does a comedic piece about some news, and it's like he had the CNN news thing, and it's like look, and it's like a documentary about how he's trying to deal with it. Like, it's like I never thought I'd be here, but like look, and
It's just
We've done it.
him trying to cope with the reality.
yeah, with being used that way.
Oh my god.
So I'm going to look at the misconception of pro wrestling from two different points of view.
Okay.
Number one is the historical aspect, which is back in the day, back as far as just this last 100 years, is that
I thought you were going to go back to Greco-Roman wrestling.
no, yeah. Didn't exist.
Good
Didn't
East
exist.
meal.
Never happened.
Where they're naked. throughout.
Is that once professional wrestling started becoming an attraction rather than being just the normal shoot wrestling of past and its history as Greco-Roman wrestling, it started becoming obviously fake. But the thing is that for everyone, performative. For everyone that was involved in the process, you had to maintain the illusion that it was. So you're feeding the misconception that it's real, quote unquote. So there's this idea of what's called kayfabe. So kayfabe is the term that the insiders use, which basically refers to any part of wrestling that is, you're pretending. So that's from the scripted nature of the matches themselves and the larger-than-life characters. So if you break kayfabe, it means that you're...
What's the origin of the word kayfabe?
They're not entirely sure.
Okay.
There's two more popular notions. One, which is like, it's the pig Latin version of saying be fake. Like kayfabe, because Kayfabe. The other one is apparently there was a mute wrestler called Kayfabian. So it's like, he was mute, which means don't talk about it, which means kayfabe.
Be kayfabe about it.
Yeah, be kayfabe about it.
Yeah, okay.
Pat Patterson, who was one of, if not the first openly gay professional wrestler, he relates a story from the 60s where basically he was doing a regional wrestling show, and every time one of the people who were working on the show was like a towel boy or whatever, like one of those people working, would come into the room. Before that, they would all yell, "Kayfabe! Kayfabe!" just to everyone just to know to not do anything that would make it seem real. And eventually this guy goes, "Look, for the just so you guys know, my name's not Kayfabe, okay? It's Mark." Which is even funnier because an insider term for people who are not smartened up for the business is a mark.
Right, okay, sure.
What I found really interesting is just the lengths that wrestlers would go to kind of feed that misconception, because you'd find that a lot of these a lot of wrestlers, so the Junkyard Dog, Kamala, who was a wrestler, his wife wasn't even smartened up to the idea of wrestling being
drama
planned.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
So whenever he would have matches and whenever he would be in angles and storylines where he'd be humiliated in some way, his wife would get really pissed off. Like, why are you letting them do this to you? Wouldn't let him in the house sometimes, make him sleep on the couch. It's like,
You have to
stand
have
up.
to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, God, it's a script. Fuck, I
So
can't."
the worst point goes, by the way, if you hear the son's following James at the moment, so if you hear him moving around, he's constantly trying to...
In my eyes.
We just keep going past all these suns that just
My
that
three
just
sons.
point at your eyes.
So the worst example of this for Kamala was that he was embroiled in a battle royal, which is where they would get, say, 20,
Royale.
30 people in the ring, and the last person that gets eliminated wins the match, and there's usually a prize associated with it. This is in the 70s, by the way, so, this particular prize was $5,000. Woo! So the wife at home sets up this kind of mini party and has all the people. It's like, yeah, we got a $5,000 bonus. She's like, he arrives like, so where is it? It's like, no, I don't have it.
There's no real prize. It's fake.
He realized after that, I should probably let her know that it's fake. This is getting out of hand.
I don't understand. Can't people tell that the punches aren't landing? Like, they stomp when they punch,
I
right,
don't
to make a
know.
noise, and the punches go right past their faces. I never had a problem with it. Like, I understood that it was fake because it was obvious, but it was still fun, right?
Well, I mean, you think
I
about
don't understand how people could believe it.
Back
Believe
in
the
the-
lie.
Back in the
This is
50s and the
going-
60s, it was less flashy. And
Yeah,
it was
okay,
it's
sure,
more
sure,
about,
sure.
there would be headlocks that last 5 minutes, and there would
Right,
be
right.
more it's chokes and it's things like that. So it's
Eye
not-
gouges.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of those more. It's not
screws.
It's
Actually,
not flashy.
wrestling, right?
Yeah, and it was more shooty. So in shoot means more stiff and more actual real. So
Okay, yeah,
some
yeah.
punches would land, and
Okay,
people
sure,
would
sure,
be. You would have there's an incident. So Richard Belzer, who was Detective John Munch from Special Victims Unit, he was a stand-up comedian, and so he's doing a talk show with Hulk Hogan, and throughout the whole episode, this interview, he's constantly goading them, being like, "Come on, man! Like, everyone knows wrestling's fake, and
You're not allowed to say it, right?
constantly pushing it." And Hulk fine, and so at one point, Hulk's being all kind of
Coy
just
and-
being all fine about it. It's like, come on, man. And eventually, Belzer says, "Come on, put me in one of your chokeholds." And Hulk's being really like, "No, it's look, I shouldn't." And finally, Richard's just like, "Do it, man." So Hulk puts him in a legitimate chokehold on live TV, puts him out in 3 seconds. And was meant to just let him down gently, but kind of freaks out and just releases him. Richard slams to the floor. Blood comes out of his head.
Oh my god.
A couple seconds later, he bounces up and cuts to commercial.
Wow.
Ends up suing Hulk for $5 million. They settle on $500,000. He revealed in an interview later he used it to buy a farm.
Go on, knock me out so I can sue you.
Yeah.
Knock me out so I can sue you.
There's these amazing
He
stories.
asked for it on video.
I know.
Yeah.
How can, if I was a judge, I'd be like, you actually asked for that repeatedly.
He asked for him to choke you out.
When they say professional, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
Said no.
For sure.
My favourite story, and this is the last story I'll
Hulk
use,
gets
is
it back, gets his money back later with a different lawsuit.
Oh yeah, was it the porno one?
the
Gorka.
Hawker. Yeah.
Gorka.
Sorry.
What was the Gorka one?
So he, there was a sex tape of him having sex with his
someone
best friend's
else's
wife.
Yeah, yeah.
Press got a hold of it.
Yeah, and Gorka was like, "We're gonna fucking release it," and he sued them, and it basically shut down Gorka. They got tons of money.
I mean, what it did do is it also he also got footage released of him saying a racial slur.
Yeah, he's also hugely racist. Yeah.
Which WWE then cut all ties with him, and it's only recently that he might be coming back. Blah 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 blah.
Screw
blah.
Hulk.
Yeah, he's done.
So here's my favorite story: is that there's a guy called Austin Idol, and this is during the 70s as well. So wrestling used to be a regional thing where it was actually territories. So if you're in Texas, it's one thing. If you're in California, it's another thing. And so wrestlers are more freelancers, and they'll go through. So there's a promoter called Fred Ward who operates in the Georgia territory. And he's known by a lot of wrestlers of kind of skimping them out of a lot of money, doesn't pay his wrestlers on time, doesn't pay them all of what they're owed. So Austin Idol, he happens to be coming through the Georgia territory. He's like, okay, I'll do it. They really want me and they're giving me a $300 guarantee. So he goes and he finds out, oh, we're doing a battle royal. And apparently I'm going to win. Okay, sure. And at the end of it, there's a $5,000 bonus. And so they do the whole thing of, handing them a check. And so he gets handed a check by Fred Ward. And so like, yeah, cool, plays it. Goes over to the showers and he looks on the check. And it's a legitimate company check. And it says, to the winner of the Battle Royal, and it's signed and everything. He's like, someone will probably take it back from me at some point. They don't. So a few weeks later, he finds again in his pocket. He's like, I wonder if I can. So back then, once again, wrestling is kind of considered real. He's like, maybe. So he goes through Georgia, he goes to a bank in Atlanta where he's not even a client of, and people recognize him. Like, yeah, that's Austin Idol. Yeah, a couple on TV, he won that Battle Royal. He's like,
here's the check. Can I cash it, please?
He did. He cashes it. He's like, can I have it in hundreds? He gets $5,000. A few weeks later, a cop pulls up on his door and is like, do you recognize this check? Because they got a photocopy of it. It's like, yeah, that's I own that check. I did that match. He's like, yeah, that's not the story we got from Fred Ward. And his response is, oh, that's funny. I mean, you get checks every week, don't you? And you cash them, don't you? The cop's like, yeah, well, so do I. I own that check. I won the match. Didn't hear anything about it again. Got away with it.
That's
great. And Fred can't say anything about it because that exposes the business.
Yeah.
It's and he never worked again. Yeah. Not in Georgia anyway.
It's so sneaky.
It gets to a point where you get guys like, you might recognize names like the Iron Sheik and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. They were rivals at the time. In 1985, they were meant to be doing a match at Madison Square Garden. A week before that, about a week or so, they get caught, they get busted for having cocaine together.
Party together,
and they're meant to be rivals.
Yeah.
It's really great just to see.
I hate you so much, I'm going to do cocaine with you in this hotel.
I think
we both get caught.
I do remember I read The Rock's autobiography, and I don't know if it was ghostwritten or anything, but it was ghostwritten.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's about his time rehearsing and working in WWE, and it's really interesting. And it was
got
the
it
first
upstairs. You can read
cool.
it.
Yeah. It was the first time I kind of had seen the back end of it. I kind of knew it was fake, but how much work went into bouts and stuff. And the thing is, if you were rivals with someone, right, you had to work with them all the time. You're probably more likely to be a good pal with your rival than you are with the other people in the circuit, because you're always fighting them, and that means you have to rehearse with them 20 times, right?
You've segued me onto my second one. So this is the other misconception with that. It is all fake. It's actually, there are parts of it which are real, which is some of the most heated storylines and angles comes from real life animosity.
Beef. Right, okay.
So the biggest one is Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. This is during the 90s, 1990, the mid to late 90s. Wrestling wasn't super popular, but you had the character of Bret Hart, who was a Canadian, beloved internationally, but he just started a gimmick, so a storyline where the kind of the foreigner gimmick where he hates America, but he's very pro-Canadian. So he's beloved everywhere in the world, but hated in America.
Of course, yeah.
And you have Shawn Michaels, who's the pretty bad boy who, crotches with his... chops his
none of you can see this, but Sean spent about 10 seconds pointing to his crotch.
Yeah. And so he's meant to be a bad boy, but because he's going against Bret Hart, it's like, he's actually the good guy.
Right, yeah, sure.
These guys hate each other because there's just a lot of backstage politicking and all the rest, and it comes to a head because at the end of 1997, Bret Hart, who was with WWF at the time, he was in a contract with WWF for the next 10, 20 years for millions of dollars, and Vince McMahon, who's the owner, can't pay it. So what they do is he's like, look, he's the champion at the time as well, so he's saying, look, I'm happy for you to go to the Rivals, that's fine, I can't pay you the money, I need you out of the contract, but I want you to face Shawn Michaels, lose to him in Canada, by the way, in your home country. He's like, look, Bret's saying, I won't do that. I'll do it anywhere else you want, to anyone else. Like, I will
lose to any.
I'll lose the next night to whoever you want. I'll drop it and I'll leave. It's fine. So Vince is like, okay, what we'll do is on that night, we'll have you guys will go to almost a draw, and then people will come out and double DQ you both. And that's how we'll do it.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
So the idea was that Shawn Michaels would put on Bret's finisher, which is a submission maneuver. Bret would then reverse it, and when Shawn's about to tap, everyone comes in and breaks it apart.
Right.
This is what actually happens, is Shawn Michaels puts on the maneuver, the referee automatically calls for the bell, and they just say, oh, Bret tapped out! He had no idea this was happening. Bret had no idea. And then they just took the belt and ran.
It's a good video. It's a good video to see.
Oh, really? They just run away.
Yeah.
And
so
Bret Hart legitimately, like...
You watch the ref call it. He signals to the timekeeper to call it. The bell rings. The ref bolts. There's a car waiting for him out of the arena. Vince comes down to, like, he's like, look, I'll be a man about it. I'll come down. Bret spits in his eye.
Yeah.
He's like, wow.
Down.
It kind of fueled the Mr. McMahon character, which kind of sets off the biggest boom period of wrestling.
Sure.
It's called the Montreal Screwjob.
Yeah. And it was a real fuckover.
It's
right?
a real thing.
Using the fakeness of it to really fuck someone over because of a real rivalry. That's really interesting. I love that your two misconceptions are that it's all fake and it's not fake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other example of that is so we got skipping about almost a decade later. You're in 2005, and there is Matt Hardy. So Matt Hardy and Lita. These are male and female who are together. They were together for years, and eventually, what happens in real life is that they split up because Lita cheats on Matt Hardy with another superstar, Edge. This is a real life thing.
What a torrid tale.
So Matt Hardy goes online.
Edge.
I know, the names make it so comic.
Matt Hardy and Edge. I'll use their real names. Amy Dumas cheats on Matt Hardy with Adam Copeland. There you go.
It's so much more boring when you say that.
Yeah. It's kind of like feels like can't believe you slept with Gyro and Spyro.
So his name's Adam. Oh, okay.
Adam.
That's
Adam
cool,
Edge. Matt goes online and kind of puts, it's like, oh, this is all crap, whatever. The WWE fires Matt.
Right.
It's like, we don't need this kind of attention.
Yeah.
And it goes really... So Edge and Lita become this on-screen couple as well, to the point where Edge wins the top title. This happens later, but Edge wins the top title, and then he says, we're going to have a live sex celebration on camera. He becomes the rated R superstar, and he's like all disgusting, and they do like foreplay and anyway. But what happens is a couple of months after Matt's left, they get a lot of backlash for it. So like, let's bring him back in. And let's put them straight into a feud with one another.
Right.
And we'll use the real life cheating angle to spur it.
Oh, it must be so weird to have that
I wouldn't pull my punches. I'd just start beating the shit out of him.
It sounds really dangerous, doesn't it?
Watch some of the matches. It's pretty damn real.
And there's, the executives going, yes, really punch each other in the face.
Yeah. There's a lot of this stuff that happens. Like The Rock came back after doing movies for years and got embroiled with a feud with John Cena. John Cena! And there was a lot of real-life animosity. John, because, The Rock had gone away to do movies and he's only a part-timer. And
John Cena kind of fills in that slot, right?
Yeah.
He's kind of a rock-shaped slot that he walks into. Yeah. It's a big slot. Fuck.
It's a big slot.
John Cena's a big man.
Beefy slot.
But yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's what I got, really.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I just don't understand how it relates to Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Well, there's a misconception that I was going to be talking about Doctor Strange,
right. Okay, that makes
but
sense.
you can't always just expect that.
In wrestling, like obviously there's some fake stuff, but the real stuff, like the Boogeyman, they're real, right?
The Undertaker can't die. That's real.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah.
Undertaker just retired.
Yeah, died.
Died. Oh, there's been some
we talked
horrible
about
characters.
that.
There's been a character named after... So, do you know the character Kane?
Who? Kane, yeah.
Kane? His persona before that was an evil dentist with the name Isaac Yankem, because he yanks them out.
Yankem.
Nice.
Dr.
I think we're
Yankem.
going to have to wrap this up before you tell us any more of these.
There was the
cringe to death.
leprechaun, wasn't there?
Hornswoggle.
Hornswoggle the leprechaun.
Please tell me that's his real name. Hornswoggle.
Hornswoggle's like, what wrestler name should I have? Like, nah, that's good. You keep it, mate. You keep
So my
it.
name's John Hornswoggle. Perfect. Come straight in.
You're hired.
The
You're in the
Yeti.
first round.
The Yeti?
The Yeti.
Who the fuck's the Yeti?
Was some guy back in the 90s
Yeti.
when
Just really hairy.
when WWE got a show on the Sci-Fi Channel. For some reason, they introduced a zombie character
you again.
and a vampire character. It was great.
What?
Because those are science
Wrestling's
fiction things.
stupid. Wrestling's incredibly stupid.
And you love it.
And it's awesome.
You love it so much.
I was going to say,
I will link your wrestling video in the bottom of this
Oh,
episode.
good lord. James's too.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Linked.
What were you
So
saying?
I
linked.
was going to say, I hated wrestling for the longest time because my partner really liked it. I hated it for the longest time, and then I got talking to you, Sean, about it.
Yeah.
And came to the realization that it is literally just a soap opera.
Yeah, and people love
That's all
soap
it
operas.
is. Yeah, and it because I was like, oh, it's so fake and it sucks. And I was like, well, it's
That's
actually
the point, right?
When
It's
you
campy
think about
fun.
it's just like a drama.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
With big characters
Yeah, it's just
and
a
torrid
live-
storylines. And
it's just a drama with a live crowd.
yeah.
yeah.
And things don't really go to plan. And you do get invested in characters. And,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
stuff.
don't get me wrong. They put on some awful TV sometimes. Like when it's horrible, it's almost unwatchable. Like
Yeah.
it's cringeworthy.
But then it makes it so much better.
I was watching the documentary about Glow, the gorgeous ladies of wrestling.
Yeah. The actual Netflix documentary based on the TV show.
Based on the
that's
TV show, yeah. But I watched the documentary and they were showing like clips from like the Glow, the original show. It was like half SNL skits. Like terrible comedy,
Yeah.
and just terrible characters, and like it was like worse than like WWE, like on a new level of like zany. Like they used to rap, and
Oh, wow.
it was like
Super cringe.
Yeah, it was weird.
I mean, some characters are literally your character is an occupation.
yeah.
Like there was a character called I.R.S. a taxman. But he wrestles.
I wonder how many people actually get from there in real life dodging taxes. Just
the accountant. I guess, yeah, they do it in a
Damn,
few
you
Shyamalan.
accountant? Yeah.
The foreigner.
The foreigner.
The chain smoker.
Yeah, just gimmick after
I'm
gimmick.
really surprised they haven't actually made a real TV series about it. Not like the whole live action WWE stuff, but
Like a drama?
or like
a drama based
comedy.
around
Oh
the-
my
or
God,
a
I
comedy,
watched
comedy
that.
thing.
a drama
Well,
comedy
that's
about
what-
the reality of it and rehearsing
Well,
and
that's
stuff.
what
Yeah,
Glow is.
and then
Yeah,
having
yeah.
the ridiculously over the top.
Have you heard
fights.
Glow?
No.
It's a
Glow's
Netflix
just
series
appeared- so,
about-
what James just talked about is the documentary. There is a TV show that's just come out from the people who
Alison
made
Brie in
Orange
it.
is the New Black.
It's got Alison Brie in it. Yeah.
It's
Right.
awesome. Like what? It's on Netflix
I
right
heard
now.
it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to wrap it up.
Yep.
No. The leftovers. We need to.
Oh,
we need to
right,
wrap them
right,
up.
right.
Just put them in the incinerator.
I need them.
Do you guys have one of those?
I feel like it's going to go off.
That's the engine.
Ah.
You can just throw them into the engine. Yeah.
Yeah,
leave it.
cool.
Yeah.
Done.
Sweet.
Or fix all our problems. Just put it out the airlock, like we did with the crew.
With literally everything that is a problem on this ship, we shoot it out there.
Done.
That's done. Solved. Problem solved. Get us something less exotic next week,
next
please.
planet we stop at, I'll
please.
try and
Sandwich.
find
Can we just go to Subway? Next time, please?
Space Subway.
Intergalactic
Space Subway. Spaceway.
Substation.
Substation Spaceway.
The puns are getting really bad.
I'll make
we need
my
to wrap it
way
up.
back to my cell.
and I'll just,
I
off
don't.
we go.
You just. Do you know what? Do what you want. Boom. I don't care.
He's gone.
anymore. I don't care.
He's gone.
Next week we'll be looking at our last M word. I believe it's our last M word. We're looking at military.
Oh, military. All right.
So get your goose stepping on and your super weapons and prepare. The rest of you can join us on Facebook and Twitter and tell us everything we got wrong this week. Please be my guest.
Yeah.
Bye. I'm Phil. You're Captain Phil.
And I'm first class first mate James. And see you next time.
I'm Sean.
from
The brig.
and I'm exotic meats officer Sam.
See ya.
Bye.
2020 could be Kanye West for the Democrats and Dwayne Johnson for the Republicans. Imagine
And
that.
He's looking at his beer like, I need more of this.
We reverse sponsor.
you drop
We
the
drop
names
names
and
and
they
then they
have to
pay
pay
us.
And then they pay us, yeah.
Google. We're on Google, though. If you type in Baby Beard Media.
You can find us.
We're on Google. We're pretty
on
famous.
Go- we're on the internet,
Google.